Investors cannot catch a break. US President Donald Trump's relentless assault on global stock markets continues. Stocks across the board crashed again today, and it was worse than last week. It is being called a Black Monday. Panic has swept through the markets from Mumbai to Tokyo. In India, the Sensex crashed over 2,200 points and the Nifty fell by over 3%, below the 22,200 mark. In one day, investors have lost over 13 lakh crore rupees in India. That's around $150 billion. This money has vanished from the Bombay Stock Exchange alone. Needless to say, the sell-off was brutal. Every sector was in the red, deep in the red. It's the same story across Asia. Tokyo's Nikkei dropped by over 8%. Taiwan's TAIEX fell by almost 10%. In both markets, the circuit breaker was triggered. What is the circuit breaker? If the stock prices rally or fall way too quickly, the markets hit a pause button. This gives a moment to all investors to calm down and think before making any decisions. Today, markets in Japan and Taiwan hit the bottom circuit, meaning they crashed hard and they crashed way too fast. So trading had to be suspended to stop further panic selling. In Hong Kong, things were equally bad. Their stock market is called the Hang Seng. It suffered its steepest decline since 1997. We're talking about a slump of 13%. It was so bad that China's sovereign wealth fund had to intervene. They bought shares to stabilize the market. The picture looks quite scary. There is panic and fear. It has all been triggered by Donald Trump, by his sweeping tariffs on US trade partners. Over the weekend, Trump doubled down on his plan.
What's going to happen with the market, I can't tell you, but I can tell you our country has gotten a lot stronger. And eventually, it'll be a country like no other. It'll be the most dominant country economically in the world.
Trump's tariffs have hit everyone, America's allies and adversaries. But it is Asia that is suffering the most, it seems. And that's because Asia is a major manufacturing hub. Its economy depends on exports to the US. Trump has placed some of the highest tariffs on this region. Just look at the rates. Japan and South Korea face 26% duties. India, again, 26%. Thailand, 36%. Vietnam, 46%. Cambodia, 49%. And China, a whopping 54% tariffs. So clearly, Asia is bearing the brunt. Its economies are under intense pressure, but Americans will feel the pain too. US investors are sounding an alarm. A recession looks increasingly likely. America's top banks are giving ominous predictions. The latest one to do so is Goldman Sachs. It says there's a 45% chance of a recession. Last week, JP Morgan had revised its forecast. It raised the possibility of a recession to 60%. And both these banks have blamed the Trump tariffs for this state of affairs. They've termed it a risk to the US economy. Of course, the US president disagrees. He calls the tariffs a medicine which the US economy must take. His Treasury Secretary has also defended the tariffs.
Mr. Secretary, how difficult is it going to be? And how long are Americans going to have to hang tough?
Well, again, I reject that assumption. There doesn't have to be a recession. Who knows how the market is going to react in a day, in a week? What we're looking at is building the long-term economic fundamentals for prosperity that I think the previous administration had put us on the course toward financial calamity.
But investors are starting to push back. One of them is Bill Ackman, the billionaire hedge fund manager. This is a man who had backed Donald Trump. He agreed that global trade needs to be rebalanced, but now he feels that Trump has gone too far. He is calling for a 90-day pause on the tariff plan, or a timeout, as he called it. Ackman believes US trade partners should use this window. They should negotiate deals with the Trump administration. Otherwise, the fallout could be severe. In fact, let me quote Ackman. If, on the other hand, on April 9th, we launch economic nuclear war on every country in the world, business investment will grind to a halt. Consumers will close their wallets and pocketbooks, and we will severely damage our reputation with the rest of the world. That will take years and potentially decades to rehabilitate. Jamie Dimon has echoed Bill Ackman's concerns. Jamie Dimon is the chairman of JP Morgan Chase. It is America's biggest bank. Diamond says the tariffs would, and I'm quoting again, push up prices for Americans. So basically, Wall Street is calling for restraint. Only a climb down by President Trump would calm the markets. The question is, will he consider it? Reports say Trump could be mulling a 90-day pause in these tariffs. All countries except China could get this temporary reprieve. A 90-day pause. Basically, Trump would delay the tariffs. That's what the report said. The markets heaved a sigh of relief, but then the White House issued a statement calling these reports fake news. And on cue, the markets fell again. We're talking about the US markets. They opened just a few hours back and they remain volatile. In fact, since Trump's tariff announcement, US stocks have lost over $6 trillion in market value. The Trump presidency is not working out for Wall Street at all. Since Inauguration Day in January, since Donald Trump's inauguration as president, US stocks have lost a record $11 trillion in value. $11 trillion. Europe too is mirroring Asia's losses. Germany's DAX, France's CAC and UK's FTSE 100, all of them fell by over 5% today. You see, markets need a semblance of certainty and continuity. But this is a shake-up of seismic proportions. No wonder there's hysteria. And it's far from over. If Donald Trump stays the course, the worst may be yet to come. Panic is the mood right now. You look at investors, you look at government officials, everyone is panicking. But here in New Delhi, the government seems relaxed, at least on the outside. That is, there's been no retaliation, no condemnation, and no panicking from New Delhi. Very different from China or the European Union. Indian officials say they will not announce retaliatory tariffs. And why is that? Because they see a number of silver linings. Number one, India has already started trade talks with the US. Prime Minister Modi traveled to Washington, D.C. in February. He and President Trump kicked off trade negotiations. They agreed to conclude it before 2026. So basically, India feels, or Indian officials feel, that India has a head start. Number two, the rates on India are relatively lower. We've been telling you about this. Our tariff rate is 26%. For Vietnam, it is 46%. For Thailand, 36%. And for Bangladesh, 37%. Basically, other Asian producers are worse off. And finally, number three, Trump did hint at a possible reprieve. His offer was quite simple: reduce your tariffs and I will help you out. This too has given Indian officials confidence. But what about Indian investors? No such joy. The sell-off continued today as well. The Sensex lost more than 2,200 points. It closed nearly 3% down. And the Nifty lost over 700 points in today's trade, closing 3.2% lower. The markets had their worst day in 10 months. Investors lost around 13 lakh crore rupees on paper. That's around $150 billion. And remember, the tariffs have not been imposed yet. Only the 10% baseline rate has been imposed or has come into effect. The rest is supposed to come into effect on Wednesday. What will happen then? Probably more pain. Some trade groups have done the calculation. They expect India's exports to the US to reduce by $5.7 billion. That's almost 6.4% drop in exports. It's different for each sector. Seafood exports could fall by 20%, iron and steel by 18%, diamonds and gold by 15%, and electronics by 12%. This could be the impact of Trump's tariffs. Plus, there'll be the knock-on effect. Industries need workers when demand is rising. When they have to produce more, they need more people. But if the demand is falling, the opposite could happen. They will try to produce less and, by extension, perhaps lay off people. Will this hurt India's economic growth? Economists say it will. They say the tariffs will reduce India's GDP growth by 20 to 40 basis points. But the government disagrees. They say the original target can still be met, which is between 6.3 and 6.8%. That is what India is eyeing in terms of GDP growth. Either way, the timing of these tariffs is not ideal. India's growth slowed down last year. There were signs of stress in household consumption. And now there's talk of a debt bubble. As you know, microcredit is huge in India. There are loans given outside the traditional banking system. They do not require collateral. And millions of Indians depend on this microfinance industry. It is worth almost $45 billion. But reports say it could now be under pressure. Around 68% of the borrowers are showing signs of distress. Many of them have started to default. Look at the numbers. In 2023, less than 1% of the loans were overdue. Now it is more than 3%. Around 27% of the borrowers are taking new loans to repay old ones, which is a classic sign of danger. India's credit card numbers are also blinking red. More Indians have started using credit cards since the pandemic. The spending has tripled since 2021. Unfortunately, the dues are also piling up. In 2024, credit card NPAs surged by more than 28%. NPAs, as you would know, are non-performing assets, NPA. You have 90 days or 3 months to pay the interest or principal on your card. If you don't do that in 90 days, it becomes an NPA. And these NPAs are piling up. They stood at around 5,300 crore rupees in December 2023, 5,300 crores. By December last year, they rose to more than 6,700 crore rupees. So NPAs have shot up by 500% since 2020. Again, it's a clear sign of danger. It is in this context that India is dealing with Trump's tariffs now. In a context of uncertainty. That's also why India is being patient. There is no point in retaliating and poking Trump further. There is also no point in reaching out to agencies like the WTO, the World Trade Organization. So the best option at the moment is to seek out a deal.
I think your question is so stupid. I mean, I think it's I don't want anything to go down. But sometimes you have to take medicine to fix something.
I want more people to show up and get him out of office. He's terrible.
Donald Trump announced the tariffs last week. The world first blinked. Then it panicked. Then markets crashed. And then trillions were wiped off. Just today, the S&P 500 added and erased $2.5 trillion in 1 hour. All on the basis of what was later called a fake news headline, $2.5 trillion. But the US president does not seem to care. He does not think it's a bad thing. In fact, Trump believes that this is exactly what America needs, a bitter pill.
Is there pain in the market at some point you're unwilling to tolerate?
I think your question is so stupid. I mean, I think it's I don't want anything to go down. But sometimes you have to take medicine to fix something.
Which has led many to ask the question, did Trump do it on purpose? Did he want the markets to crash? I know it's a weird question to ask. But there's no smoke without fire, and the fire was lit by the president himself. On Friday, he reposted a video link on his social media platform, Truth Social. The video is by a TikTok user, and this is what he's suggesting. Trump is crashing the market on purpose.
Trump is crashing the stock market by 20% this month, but he's doing it on purpose. And this is why Warren Buffett just said Trump is making the best economic moves he's seen in over 50 years. Now, here's the secret game he's playing, and it could make you rich.
So how does this even work? The video claims that this is like a wild chess move. Trump imposes the tariffs, the market crashes. He forces money into US Treasury bonds. The Fed cuts interest rates. Lower rates mean lower mortgage payments. The dollar becomes weaker. Companies end up making more in America, so grocery prices tumble, and somehow the middle class is saved. It sounds convoluted. It also sounds like a classic conspiracy theory, because it most probably is. The funny part is that Trump seems to be backing it. In fact, this has been his position and calculation throughout. Look at his latest post on Truth Social. Trump says, and I'm quoting, oil prices are down, interest rates are down, food prices are down, and there is no inflation. And the long-time abused USA is bringing in billions of dollars a week from the abusing countries on tariffs that are already in place. So Trump clearly believes that tariffs are a good thing, that this is America's bitter pill. But is the bitter pill too bitter? Americans certainly think so. They have been protesting in all 50 states. Thousands of Americans took to the streets over the weekend. They had just 2 words for their president: hands off.
It's important to speak up. I think silence is not an option. I think you have to stay engaged. You have to stay vigilant. I think it's not only for our community at large, but the world at large. I think that enough is enough.
We object to the everything that Donald Trump is doing, basically in terms of his power grab and all the damage he's doing to the economy and to democracy. That's why I'm saying the Trump slump is basically the stock market's crashing, the economy is going to crash, it's already crashing, and it's all about Trump. It's all his actions, his stupidity, his mistakes.
The protest stretched from New York to Los Angeles. Around 600,000 people signed up. Organizers claimed the number was more than 1 million. Either way, anger is clearly in the air, not just at rallies or on the streets, but also in quieter battlegrounds, like grocery lines. In less than 2 weeks, America will celebrate Easter. But this year, the Easter bunnies got budget issues because Americans cannot even afford eggs. Back in February, prices cracked a record: $8 for a dozen eggs. Prices have dipped a little since, but they're still not exactly sunny side up. And eggs are not just for breakfast, they are an Easter tradition. So Americans are turning to the next best thing: dyed potatoes, for instance, because they're cheap. Others are stuffing plastic cases. Some are also eyeing golf balls. Basically anything cheaper and round that can be passed off as eggs. And this is just one example. Americans are rushing to stock up on things, on groceries, on apparel, even on furniture. Some, in fact, are buying cars too, all before tariffs cause a massive price hike. But will any of this force Trump to rethink his policy? It looks unlikely at the moment. Trump is still selling his tariffs as some kind of miracle cure. The markets are swallowing that medicine, and they're showing serious side effects like panic, plummeting portfolios, and economic indigestion. But even Trump must know that playing Jenga with the economy is a risky game. So this is where America is at the moment, caught between a president prescribing economic shock therapy and a public tired of being the guinea pig. Donald Trump calls his plan visionary. His critics call it volatile, because for Team Trump, it may be a high-stakes experiment in power. But for millions of Americans, it's a battle for survival. They say good economics is bad politics. But guess what? Bad economics can also be bad politics. In America, the Republican Party is learning it the hard way. It's the party that runs Washington right now. It is Donald Trump's party, the president who has unleashed tariffs. Economists think it is a bad strategy. Interestingly, politicians think the same. Because the tariffs have angered their voters, American citizens. They're very upset, they're protesting, they're demanding a rollback, but Trump is sticking to his guns. And caught in this crossfire is the Republican Party, also called the GOP, the Grand Old Party. They feel the tariffs will backfire, so they're now gunning for Trump. The first shot came from Ted Cruz. He is the Republican senator from Texas. He has warned, and I'm quoting here, He has warned of a bloodbath in the midterms. That's the midterm election next year he's talking about. Ted Cruz says the president is destroying the American economy. And he is not alone. At least 7 senior Republicans have expressed similar concerns, like Senator Chuck Grassley of Iowa. He recently co-sponsored a bipartisan bill. Bipartisan means it is supported by both parties, the Republicans and the Democrats. So Chuck Grassley is teaming with the other side, and that's some serious rebellion within the GOP. And do you know what the legislation is for? To limit Donald Trump's power to impose tariffs. And that's not all. For every new tariff that Trump imposes, he has 48 hours to explain why he's doing so. That's what this bill says. Also, all new tariffs will expire in 60 days if not approved by the US Congress. Now, these are some serious measures to check the president's power. Guess where they're coming from? His own party, the GOP. It is going through a crisis. And the tariffs have become a litmus test. Republicans are worried about the midterms next year, about how they will perform as a party. You see, last year in November, they rode the MAGA wave. They won the race to the White House. They also swept the US Congress, which is America's version of a parliament. The Republicans now have a majority in the Senate and the House of Representatives. The Speaker of the House is Republican. This is one of the most powerful positions on Capitol Hill, the House Speaker. Republicans also decide which bills are tabled for voting. So controlling both these houses, both houses of Congress, is clearly important. They have that control now. They may not have it next year. They fear they could lose this majority after the midterm elections, which are basically elections held in the middle of a US president's tenure, hence the name midterm. Seats in the House and the Senate are up for grabs. It's like a reshuffle. Americans use it to show what they think of the current administration. So the midterms are important. They will shape what is left of Trump's second term. And that is why the Republicans are tense. The Trump tariffs are putting loyalties to the test. And it's not just the Republican Party. Even Trump's biggest supporter is having cold feet. We're talking about Elon Musk. The billionaire has finally broken his silence, and this time he is not defending his president. Elon Musk said that he wants zero tariffs. He's calling for more free trade. He wants a zero tariff corridor, but only between the US and Europe. Listen to this.
I'm hopeful, for example, with the tariffs, that at the end of the day, I hope it is agreed that both Europe and the United States should move, ideally, in my view, to a zero tariff situation, effectively creating a free trade zone between Europe and North America.
So Musk wants the tariffs gone. He's advocating for free trade. It is not the loudest criticism of the president, but it is criticism indeed. And it is coming from Donald Trump's closest ally. Elon Musk put everything on the line to have Trump re-elected. He poured billions of dollars. He held rallies on behalf of the Republican, and he promised to ring in a new America with Trump. Now that support looks sticky.
China, 67%. European Union, 39%. Vietnam, 90%. India, very, very tough. Very, very tough. They charge us 52%.
Well, at the moment, the market is reacting to the fact that there was no ameliorative or softer statement from the US or from President Trump over the weekend. On Thursday and Friday, the US markets fell over 10%. The Nasdaq is in bear territory, which means 20% off its highs. When an index falls over 20%, you call it bear territory. The expectation was that after seeing such a fall, which has happened only 3 times before in recent history, during COVID and during the 2008 Lehman crisis, if he doesn't respond to that, then is he likely to not pull back at all? That is the sentiment to which the Asian markets are reacting now. In addition, of course, there is the Chinese retaliation as well. So the markets here are reacting to the fact that there is no ameliorative statement. We will still have to wait and see. An ameliorative statement from the US president to any of the countries can still pull back the market somewhat. What the market is worried if there is a retaliatory statement even from the EU, then it's a global, trade war. China has already called the war. So that's what the market is confused about. It was expected that that big crash was the worst, but that didn't happen. It looks like there will be even worse in terms of Trump holding back, ready to take the immediate pain. His statement was that, some medicine is needed. That's the market's worry, really. It is going to get worse before it gets better. That's the first worry. The second worry is, even when it gets better, the world is going to grow much more slowly than what was expected before the Trump presidency. We are reacting to that. So even when we correct, we're not going to correct back to the previous levels because there is a global slowdown. Actually, only the developed countries and China who have retaliated. They are in a slightly stronger position than India is, than developing countries are. And so those are the two blocks that have retaliated. The rest of them are willing to come to any concessions. To be fair, even Canada is willing to come to concessions. But the Indian position relative to this issue is very strong. Our trade deficit, the important point is Trump is not going by your tariff levels. You can have 100-200% tariffs for all he cares, but don't have a trade deficit with my country, which is buy more from us and sell less to us. That's all he wants, which is India is in a position to do, because our trade deficit with him is only $40 billion or thereabouts, and one can easily...
An eye for an eye makes the whole world blind, a saying attributed to Mahatma Gandhi. It means that seeking revenge creates a cycle of suffering. But it is the dominant sentiment in the world right now. Countries around the world have reacted to Donald Trump's tariffs. They are not happy. Canada said it will fight the tariffs. Germany called them, and I quote, nonsense. Italy said the tariffs will weaken the West. World leaders are calling for retaliation. They're gearing up for a trade war, one that they never started. As Trump unleashes his tariffs, our next report tells you how countries around the world are responding.
Trade war is in nobody's interest.
Our old relationship of steadily deepening integration with the United States is over. When the United States embraced the mantle of global economic leadership is over.
President Trump's tariffs is a major blow to the world economy.
Well, this is a tragedy. It is also the new reality.
US President Donald Trump has unleashed a trade war. His tariffs on all countries is pushing economies to the brink. On one hand, Americans are protesting against their president, Republicans are breaking ranks, and even Trump's closest ally, Elon Musk, is questioning the move. But Donald Trump is doubling down, and now the world is reacting. The strongest rebuttal has come from America's northern neighbor. Donald Trump has imposed a 25% tariff on Canada, and Ottawa has promised to retaliate. Prime Minister Mark Carney says he will fight tariffs with tariffs and that Canada will lead the trade war against the United States.
Our old relationship of steadily deepening integration with the United States is over. The 80-year period when the United States embraced the mantle of global economic leadership, when it forged alliances rooted in trust and mutual respect, and championed the free and open exchange of goods and services, is over.
Carney has also announced that Canada will review its weapons deal with the US. This includes the deal of F-35 stealth fighter jets.
We're looking on diversification in terms of maritime procurement and other aspects of procurement. We're reviewing the F-35 fighters to make sure that that's the right approach for the country going forward, given the other considerations.
Then there's the United Kingdom. Prime Minister Keir Starmer says that a trade war was in nobody's interest, as it would only hurt the global economy. Starmer has announced that he will protect British interests and that all options are on the table.
I mean, we have our own trading relationship with the US. It is actually a fair and balanced relationship if you look at the numbers. And of course, we've got decades worth of a special relationship with the United States. And I think it's by focusing on those features that we can take the necessary steps to secure our economy through hopefully a deal with options on the table if that's not possible.
Joining the UK is Europe. Germany has warned that a trade war will only hurt the United States. Spain says it will do quote-unquote everything to protect its interests. Meanwhile, Donald Trump's ally, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, expressed disappointment. She said Italy never wanted to be part of a trade war. Meloni has now pledged to protect Italian businesses. Greece and Sweden have also condemned the tariffs. While Europe is preparing for a trade war, there's one country that's escalating it: China. Beijing has dropped all calls for negotiations. In fact, China is intensifying the trade war. They have increased tariffs on American goods. China is now levying 34% tariffs on all US exports. Beijing says it's determined to meet Trump head-on. Meanwhile, India is taking a more sensible approach. It's calling for cooperation, not confrontation. New Delhi is seeking a bilateral trade agreement with Washington, and Trump says he's open to such deals. The US president has set the global economy on fire. While some countries like China are fanning the flames, India is being more responsible by looking to firefight the global uncertainty.
Now back to India. New Delhi is moving quietly, making powerful and hidden moves. And I mean this literally. A classified military project is breaking covers. The Indian Navy calls it Project Varsha. And this is no ordinary project. Project Varsha is about a naval base. It will be completed next year, that is 2026. It will give India two things. First, the Indian Navy will get its very own nuclear submarine base. And second, it will be a unique engineering marvel, the first of its kind. This base will be in the state of Andhra Pradesh in a coastal city called Rambili. It will be 50 kilometers south of Visakhapatnam. That is where the Indian Navy has its eastern command. And this base is going to be significant in many ways. It has been in the making for a decade. Here's why Rambili was chosen for the project. Because of its geography. The water is deep in this area. It gives submarines natural cover. They can remain underwater and enter the base, which means they do not have to surface and blow their cover. Basically, no one will know when the submarines come and go. And this is perfect for nuclear submarines because they can stay underwater for months at a time. They only surface for supplies. Although India's nuclear submarines won't even have to do that, they can stay submerged forever and move into their base without anyone knowing. Here's why I say that. We know that the base is in Rambili in Andhra Pradesh, but like the submarines, the base too will be hidden. It is fully underground, hidden from satellites. Even locals do not know where the base is. There are no signboards or markers. Let me also tell you about its engineering. The underground facility will have a network of tunnels and pens. It will discreetly house India's nuclear submarine fleet. India already has two nuclear submarines, the INS Arihant and the INS Arighat. A third one will be commissioned this year. It is being called the INS Aridhaman. A fourth one is already under construction. In total, India plans to operate 10 nuclear submarines. And this base will be home to all of them. It is significant for two more reasons. One, it enhances India's naval capacity. And two, it sends a message that India is serious about its security. It is expanding its second strike capabilities. What does that mean? What are second strike capabilities? You see, India has a no first use nuclear doctrine. A no first use doctrine. In simpler words, it basically means that India will not use nuclear weapons first. It will only use nukes to retaliate when attacked by a nuclear weapon. That is no first use. And this is what makes India a responsible power. It sees nuclear weapons as a deterrent, a way to prevent war. Contrast that with others, like India's neighbor Pakistan. They have a first use nuclear doctrine. They see nuclear weapons as tools of war. So India is safeguarding its nuclear assets. And the hidden base helps. It will protect the nuclear submarines. This is also a message to China. Beijing has increased its activity in the Indian Ocean. Their so-called research vessels are constantly being nosy. They frequently visit waters around India, and the Chinese maritime activity is only growing. This includes the presence of Chinese submarines in the Indian Ocean. The Indian Navy has also detected them, so it is working to counter the threat with the help of a nuclear submarine base. India's strategy is clear: match power with power. The Indian Navy is preparing for the long game, a game of silence, strength, and submarines. So India is boosting its defense capabilities, and our rivals, well, they're also building new facilities. That too, with help from our old friend, Bangladesh. Reports say China will build an airfield in Bangladesh. Let me pull up the map first. The airfield could come up in this region. Lalmonirhat in the north. Look at how close it is to India's northeast, especially the Chicken's Neck. As you know, the Chicken's Neck is a narrow strip of land. It connects India's northeast to the mainland. You cut it off, and you cut off India's northeast. An airfield near this region is bad enough, but a Chinese airfield, if true, it would be a major security threat. Reports say India is studying these plans. Chances are, it came up only last week during Mohammad Yunus's trip to China. The official statements did not mention it, but Yunus did say something strange while he was in Beijing. Listen to this.
7 states of India, eastern part of India, called Seven Sisters, they are landlocked country, landlocked region of India. They have no way to reach out to the ocean. We are the only guardian of the ocean for all this region. So this opens up a huge possibility. So this could be an extension of the Chinese economy.
That statement confused a lot of people. If Yunus wanted Chinese investments, he could have just asked for it. Instead, he talked about India's northeast, how the region was landlocked and how Bangladesh was the only guardian. Days later, reports talk about a Chinese airfield. Coincidence? I don't think so. And the trouble does not end here. There could be a Pakistani angle as well. Reports say the airfield's construction will begin by October, and a Pakistani firm will be the subcontractor. So China could plan and pay for the project, meanwhile Pakistan could build it. This proposal could be the agenda or on the agenda later this month. Pakistan is sending 2 top officials to Dhaka. Their foreign secretary will visit Bangladesh on the 17th of April. Their foreign minister Ishaq Dar will visit on April 24th. This will be the first ministerial trip since 2012, and it should not surprise anyone. Since taking office, Mohammad Yunus has had just one goal: push India and Bangladesh apart. Traditionally, Dhaka has depended on New Delhi for its needs, whether it's medical tourism or infrastructure assistance or river water projects, they depended on India. But Yunus does not like that. And he is not just replacing India, he is provoking us. Consider the Teesta River project. Bangladesh wants to protect and conserve this river. The plan is to dredge portions of it, construct reservoirs, and build townships on either bank. Last year, India agreed to implement this project. It wanted to keep China away from the Teesta River. Again, same concern, too close to India's northeast. And Sheikh Hasina had agreed to give India priority, but Mohammad Yunus is asking China to help out. Like I said, it's not just about replacing India, it's about undermining India's security. The question is, how can India respond? How should India respond? Last week, Prime Minister Modi met Mohammad Yunus. The differences were quite evident. Also evident was Dhaka's double game. After the meeting, they released an official statement. The Bangladeshis, they released a statement, and several parts of it seemed questionable. For example, the statement claimed that Prime Minister Modi called Sheikh Hasina disrespectful. Indian officials later dismissed this account. They called it mischievous and politically motivated. It tells you who you're dealing with. A regime that cannot be trusted, not even to release an unadulterated press statement. Having said that, it's a reality that India must deal with. Mohammad Yunus is keen to build a new alliance in South Asia, a nexus with China and Pakistan, so it's up to India to be prepared. The Indian military has a strong presence in the northeast. It must study and plan for these Chinese designs. At the same time, a diplomatic campaign is necessary, a campaign to build pressure for elections in Dhaka. Because Yunus is an unelected interim leader, he should not be taking such crucial decisions. If he continues to have his way, he could do irreparable damage to India-Bangladesh ties. Let's hope it does not come to that. Now let's talk about Saudi Arabia. In a sudden move, Riyadh has suspended short-term visas for Indians. The ban is temporary. It starts from April 13th. It will last until the Hajj ends. But what triggered this move? Last year's Hajj tragedy, where around 1,000 pilgrims died. Many of the victims were unregistered pilgrims. You see, there are special Hajj visas for the pilgrimage, but a lot of people use their regular travel visa for the Hajj. And this leads to overcrowding. Saudi officials want to avoid that. They've raised the penalties for violators, including a jail term for those who go to the Hajj without the right visa. Our next report has more details.
It's one of the key pillars for followers of the Islamic faith, performing the Hajj at least once in their lifetime. That often means withstanding days of extreme heat and outdoor exertion. Last year at the Hajj, over 1,000 pilgrims had died due to heat exhaustion when temperatures soared above 50 degrees Celsius. Many of these victims were unregistered. This included some pilgrims from India too. They didn't come on a valid Hajj visa. Instead, they used other short-term visas. They were on their own. They avoided the official process. They weren't assigned proper housing or medical support. The result was tragic. Saudi authorities don't want a repeat of last year, so they've hit pause on short-term visas for Indians from mid-April till June. No Umrah, tourist, business or family visas will be issued to Indian nationals. That's right before Hajj. The ban applies on 14 countries in all. If you already have a valid visa, you can still travel, but only until 13th April. After that, the doors close until the pilgrimage ends. The message from Saudi authorities is clear. If you're planning to perform Hajj, you must go through the official route. Here in India, that means applying through the Hajj Committee of India, the only body authorized to organize the pilgrimage. India sends one of the largest groups of Hajj pilgrims every year. Last year alone, over 175,000 pilgrims had travelled to Saudi Arabia. So a large presence of unregistered pilgrims becomes a crowd management issue for Saudi authorities, which is why the visa curbs make sense. Saudi Arabia is also tightening enforcement. Non-registered pilgrims face tough penalties now. If you're caught performing Hajj without the right visa, you could face a fine of around $2,600. Violators can even be jailed. Authorities are even seizing vehicles and properties used to help people stay illegally. Already, over 18,000 violators have been detained. Some visa holders are still allowed to travel, like any Indian resident living in Saudi Arabia with a valid Saudi residence permit. Hajj-specific visas issued through the official quota are still valid. But if you're planning an Umrah trip before Hajj or just visiting family or doing business, you'll have to wait. This is just a temporary pause limited to short-term visas only, but it's one that comes with a clear warning.
In Japan, rice is not just food, it is sacred. It is tied to ancestors and Shinto gods. It is served at weddings, it is offered at shrines. So Japan does not treat rice like a commodity, it regulates it like a national treasure, which is why a recent headline has raised questions in the country. Japan is dipping into its emergency rice reserves to regulate rice prices in the country. This is a reserve meant only for the worst of disasters. So this is not just a policy move, it is a signal that something has gone seriously wrong with Japan's rice production. Why is the country running low on a crop that it practically worships? Our next report tells you.
The summer of 2023 wasn't kind. Across Japan, the heat was relentless. Scorching temperatures swept through the islands. Paddies that once shimmered with promise dried up under the blazing sun. Rain came, but too little or all at once. So, the rice didn't stand a chance. The harvest came in weak. Grains were underdeveloped, and just as people started to worry about supply, nature doubled down. Earthquakes rocked the country, one after another. It sent people to the stores, panicking. And of course, rice disappeared first. Now, Japan doesn't treat rice like any other crop. It's carefully protected. Grown under government guidance, managed through cooperatives, and priced in a way that tries to keep farmers afloat. The government tightly controls how much rice is grown each year. It's all about balance. But when you throw a heat wave, a few quakes, and a touch of inflation into the mix, that balance starts to crack. In 2023, farmers actually harvested more rice than the year before. About 180,000 tons more. But here's the twist, distributors bought 230,000 tons less. Somewhere between the rice fields and the dinner plates, rice was vanishing. Some say it was logistics. Others think businesses and households began hoarding. Maybe it was a mix of both. So, Japan started running out of rice, and the prices started rising.
I'm buying rice less and less frequently, and sometimes replacing it with packaged noodles like udon or yakisoba because they're cheaper.
I still do buy rice occasionally, but since it's so expensive, I sometimes give up on buying it once I see the price.
So, Japan decided to dip into its strategic reserves of rice. Think of it like a national treasure chest, but filled with rice. The government holds around 1 million tons. It is auctioning around 231,000 tons of rice. That's 1/5 of the total reserves. And it's not the first time. It dipped into this reserve after the 2011 earthquake and tsunami. Also, after the 2016 Kumamoto earthquake. But this is the first time it is doing it, due to distribution issues.
To alleviate the market situation, naturally you would think the government needs to release double the amount of what's needed. So even if the government releases 210,000 tons, the situation would not get better for a small retailer like me.
Japan's rice prices may go down, with the reserves hitting the shelves. But one problem still persists. Japan is slowly running out of people to grow its rice. The average Japanese rice farmer is over 70 years old. Young people aren't taking over. The work is hard, the profits are low, and the countryside is emptying out. Even if demand rises, who will grow the rice? That's a question Japan will have to answer soon. This is a country where rice isn't just food. It is, in many ways, a symbol of national identity. But climate change is shifting growing seasons. Rural populations are dwindling. The younger generation isn't flocking to farming. And a food system built on tradition is struggling to adapt. Can Japan continue to micromanage rice production? Or will this rice-loving nation have to rethink how it feeds itself?
China, 67%. European Union, 39%. Vietnam, 90%. India, very, very tough. Very, very tough. They charge us 52%.
Well, at the moment, the market is reacting to the fact that there was no ameliorative or softer statement from the US or from President Trump over the weekend. On Thursday and Friday, the US markets fell over 10%. The Nasdaq is in bear territory, which means 20% off its highs. When an index falls over 20%, you call it bear territory. The expectation was that after seeing such a fall, which has happened only 3 times before in recent history, during COVID and during the 2008 Lehman crisis, if he doesn't respond to that, then is he likely to not pull back at all? That is the sentiment to which the Asian markets are reacting now. In addition, of course, there is the Chinese retaliation as well. So the markets here are reacting to the fact that there is no ameliorative statement. We will still have to wait and see. An ameliorative statement from the US president to any of the countries can still pull back the market somewhat. What the market is worried if there is a retaliatory statement even from the EU, then it's a global trade war. China has already called the war. So that's what the market is confused about. It was expected that that big crash was the worst, but that didn't happen. It looks like there will be even worse in terms of Trump holding back, ready to take the immediate pain. His statement was that, some medicine is needed. That's the market's worry, really. It is going to get worse before it gets better. That's the first worry. The second worry is, even when it gets better, the world is going to grow much more slowly than what was expected before the Trump presidency. We are reacting to that. So even when we correct, we are not going to correct back to the previous levels because there is a global slowdown. Actually, only the developed countries and China who have retaliated. They are in a slightly stronger position than India is, than developing countries are. And so those are the two blocks that have retaliated. The rest of them are willing to come to any concessions. To be fair, even Canada is willing to come to concessions. But the Indian position relative to this issue is very strong. Our trade deficit, the important point is Trump is not going.
Forget Friday the 13th. The new horror show is Monday the 7th. Today the world woke up to a rude shock that economics is real. It's not something made up by students who hate science. It is real and it is powerful. Just ask Donald Trump. His tariffs questioned all economic sense. Every expert told him it would backfire. Yet what did he do? He did it anyway. Trump is not feeling the pinch of his tariffs, of course. He's a billionaire and the sitting US president. But guess who is feeling the pinch? Ordinary consumers and investors. They're so angry, they're making memes about the crashing markets. Take a look.